Northwest, where rescue machinery has arrived at the Stilfontein Mine shaft as phase 2 of the rescue mission takes shape. Provincial oversight structures are also set to visit the site today. Hundreds of illegal miners are believed to still be underground at the disused shaft. Ziniko Mhlaba is joining us now live. Ziniko, very good morning to you. Tell us about what you can see from your vantage point.
Yes, Aldrin, what we are seeing from where we are is that heavy machinery is starting to operate now. And of course, we are seeing that a camera has been dropped or is being dropped onto the ground so that it can go underground to monitor and see and inspect what is really happening there, but also most importantly the situation and the possible stumbling blocks for that machine, which will be deployed underground to go and retrieve deceased bodies, but also those individuals, illegal miners who are still alive. So that crane that you see there on your visuals, Aldrin, arrived about 45 minutes ago or about an hour ago, and of course, as you see, that is already operational, conducting that attempt to really test and see how that camera is likely going to be deployed. It has not been deployed yet, but as you can see, it's hanging there over the surface. So that crane is going to be very, very key in terms of its positioning. Remember, in the past 2 days, the position or the focus had been clearing that particular vicinity closer to that opening. And of course, we now see why it was important to clear that side, because that crane is just on top of that wide hole we've been showing over the past 7 days, so that it can be able to have a direct access to that hole. So as you can see, that's just hanging over that particular hole. So that camera was part and parcel of a key part of phase 2 of this operation, which will be able to go down to inspect. Remember that there was also that advisory coming from committee members, communicating with illegal miners that they need to be 50 meters away from the entry point of that hole, so that that camera can be able to function and operate without any disturbances. So over the past 2 days, there hasn't been any communication between us on the surface and the illegal miners on the ground. So we're not sure then whether they are aware that a camera is about to be deployed underground. And of course, even if we are not even sure how they're going to react if they happen to be closer to where that camera is going to be descending on. And of course, we don't know whether how their attitude will be towards this machinery. So that's going to be a challenge, but we'll see whether that camera is going to be deployed underground and of course be brought up to the surface without any harm onto it. So that's where things are right now. And of course, we're expecting more heavy machinery to be deployed today. So it seems as if today is ready. The operations are ready to continue as planned so far. But Aldrin, I've got with me a former mine inspector who has been sharing with us the information about the state of these mines, their state in terms of whether how safe they are and if people underground can be able to survive for such a long time. I brought him in today so that he can explain to us the importance of bringing in the experts into the operations, and of course the importance of using state-of-the-art machinery to conduct these operations. I'm going to bring in Ntate Andreas. Thank you very much, Ntate, ka nako ya hao. Re bona ntho e bohlokwa monana e etsagala mona pele wa rona. Kopa o njwetse gore tjeka former inspector go bohlokwa jwang go tlisa di-aspect gore di tlo dira mbereko ona.
Ha ke le Ntate ke be ke dumedise. Ho bohlokwa hobane ho latela ka mokgwa ho leng ka teng. Mona re bona mathata ho latela tshebetso e rileng ga e bona e etsahala mona. Jwale hona ba ditjena ha ile mona ho tlisitswe batho ba tsebang hantle ka hore na mine ke eng le hore na bothata ba mine ke ba mofuta ofeng. Ke dumela hore e tla ba ntho e ntle hore batho bao ba ka mo ka hara mokoti o ba tswe hantle ba bolokehile.
So bua ka thaba ya machinery re bonele matsatsi a mangwe be berekisa di-ropes be berekisa di-ropes go ntsha batho mana yaanong tjeka o tseba mokoti ona le condition ya ona o nagana gore di-machinery tlo dira mbereko o better compared to ditsela tsena be re berekisa over the past 2 days.
Ntate ho latela ka mokgwa o leng ka teng diropo tseno mono e ntse e le kotsi hodima kotsi e leng ka tlase ho mokoti. Hobane e sita le yona ke checka bo yona e ntse e le kotsi e operatiwa letsatsi le letsatsi ntse ile kotsi hobane ntho eno e etsuwang mono ke risky empe haholo ya hore beneneng ho kopantswe dithapo mono batho ba thewa ka dithapo ka lebaka la hobane fela ba re ba batla ho a fihlella ntho e bona ba e batlang e seng ya molao e seng ka molao hobane le ka molao phoso e ntse e etsahala e sita le ha ile ka hore ntho engwe le engwe e right ho latela hore na mokoti ke ntho e jwang kotsi e a hlaha jalo ka kotsi tse ileng tsa hlaha ditshafong tse pedi ya Valerius le Valerius number 2 le number 6 ya Hardisi mo ke neng ke sebetsa teng nna number 6 ya Hardisi o le ha etsala kotsi ya hore ke tshenyolo e tlase yo chaisa hodimo yo hlaisa hodimo tshafong ye nngwe e yo chaisa tlase ka batho ba fetang 100 ba lekanang 105 ho latela hore ketche e nngwe le engwe teke e nka 35 mme teke tseo di tharo batho ba o ke 105 ye ileng ya chaisa hodimo ka bona.
Okay, last question go wena ntate ya nong go bohlokwa jwang gore batho ba go tlase mona na ba respect ba berekisane le di experts mona so that ba gona go tswa be safe?
Ho bohlokwa hobane ka hare mokoti o kotsi le ha o sa sebetse mokoti o kotsi ho bohlokwa hore batho bao ba ukwisise hore ba lokela ho tswa hobane le tsela e ba ileng ka yona ha se tsela ya molao ba lokela ho tswa mme ba tswe ba le safe bophelo bo tla pele bophelo bo tla pele
ke le bogele ntate wa
tanki ndati.
Thank you very much. Well, life comes first, Aldred. That's the view of Mr. Andreas, who is a former mine inspector in this mining vicinity, but also, positive about this initiative taken by government in terms of bringing in experts to come and run these operations, but also believing very strongly that indeed this heavy machinery which is being brought by government is going to yield positive results. And actually, it is the best option under the circumstances, but also saying that it is very, very important for the illegal miners underground to collaborate and ensure that they do allow these experts to bring them onto the surface using these machines in the most safest manner. So that's the latest from us. I'll inspect you in studio for now.
Yeah, so Ziniko, speak to us about the communication with the alleged illegal miners underground. So one of the instances that we saw, for instance, was that note that came to the surface around the delivery of the ARVs. But how much do we know about how informed they are about these operations that are taking place and how these operations will be taking place? How are they receiving any information and communication with regards to what is at play?
So I can confirm, Aldred, that the last communication between those on the surface and the illegal miners underground was the last communication was that letter which was requesting for ARVs. Since then, there has not been any communication between the committee members, law enforcement agencies, and those underground. So clearly, and it was also confirmed by the alleged committee leaders themselves that they have not been able to get any response from those underground. So that tells you that those people underground have no idea what's happening on the surface, and that might pose a serious risk. Remember, they had attempted to communicate the message which was speaking about requesting them to move away from the actual main hole where the equipment is going to be deployed to under the ground. They did not respond. So we are not sure then whether, how much information they have at this point, but I can confirm that there has been any communication over the past 3 days between us and the surface, whether it's their leaders themselves or law enforcement and those underground. So that's the tricky situation, and maybe we'll be able to see how this day unfolds, and of course how far these operations are going to go today and to what extent, and also just get a sense of how are they going to be, how those underground are going to react to this heavy machinery. And of course, one of the first machinery that is going to be deployed down to the underground world is that camera. Remember, a camera does not respond to anything. The camera is just there to capture. But as those who have been brought onto the surface and the volunteers themselves who had been, running these operations were not so comfortable with being recorded or being on camera. So we're not sure then whether those underground are going to share the same sentiments and the same attitude towards the camera which is going to be deployed. But we also don't know whether that camera is going to get to them, in terms of its lenses and what it can capture underground. So there's no communication up until this point. And the last communication was about 3 days ago.
Yeah, in the next short while, we'll be in conversation with the Secretary General of SAF, Ziniko Mhlaba, and he was also in the area there, Ziniko, and one of the points that he stresses is that they will die a slow death, and yesterday confirmation from Mugabone, who is the police spokesperson, that the last time that food actually went down was on Saturday, so that's nearly a week ago.
That's right, and that's one of the things that was worrying community members, especially family members of those who are still underground, that they have no idea, how those underground, are surviving. As you said, that the last time they had some sort of food to eat was Saturday, and of course, we're just two days. We're almost hitting the 7 days period tomorrow on Saturday. So, but also, I remember that these are the people who have been underground for several months. And we're talking about them not having food just over 7 days. We're not sure whether there is no food underground or not, whether they still have some stock which had been maybe deployed before police, descended on this particular shaft. So we're not clear there in terms of the state of those underground, especially when it comes to their health. But we do know that there were some individuals who came out, who were retrieved successfully by community volunteers, who came out in very, very bad health conditions. They had to be taken to health facilities here, but we were just not sure about the number and the extent and how things have worsened over the past 7 days or not. And maybe, the committee that is going to be coming here to just conduct some oversight responsibilities will be given some brief by the police authorities who are running this particular city. And maybe that's where we'll have an idea whether those people are still, have any stock underground, if there has been any communication that's coming, onto the surface from underground. So in the next hour or two, we might have some answers in regards to that question.
Thank you so much, Ziniko Mhlaba, joining us from Stilfontein.